All right, we ran out of time in that last segment. I want to encourage you to weigh in with your members of Congress on the Women's Health Protection Act. That's Nancy Pelosi's deceptively named abortion bill. Give your member of Congress a call. This is probably going to be voted on tomorrow. It might be pushed to next week. 202-224-3121 is the Capitol switchboard number. That's 202-224-3121, or go to TonyPerkins.com and we've got that. We got a really an easy process for you to contact your member of Congress. But it's also a reminder, download the Stand Firm app, and that way all this stuff is right at your fingertips. Okay, so be sure and do that. That is the Women's Health Protection Act, deceptively named pro-abortion bill. All right, President Biden came into office touting unity. Remember that? Remember the speech about unity? But rather than working with others, especially Republican governors, he's been talking about getting them out of the way.
If they'll not help, if these governors won't help us beat the pandemic, I'll use my power as president to get them out of the way.
Well, Republican governors aren't budging. In fact, time after time, they're linking arms to resist the overreach of this administration. Recently, they made a request to meet with President Biden about the situation at the southern border. They're pushing back on his mask mandates. And you know what? This is the way it's supposed to work. This is federalism in action. Well, joining me now to talk more about this, one of those governors who is resisting the overreach of the federal government is Mississippi's Governor Tate Reeves. Governor Reeves, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Tony. Great to be on with you today.
You know, this is a lesson in civics and how our system of government is supposed to work. That's why the founders created this federalist system. They were very concerned about an overreaching, all-powerful federal government. And I tell you what, I can't think of a better example than what we're seeing right now with this vaccine mandate.
Well, that's exactly right. You know, the key point here with respect to the vaccine mandate is not only has President Biden himself assured the American people for almost a year that there would not be a vaccine mandate, the very people that he has appointed to various positions, Dr. Walensky at the CDC has been very adamant that we would not have a vaccine mandate. Dr. Fauci has said time after time again that not in America, that he could not envision a time in which we would have a vaccine mandate. But then Afghanistan occurs and the president's getting very, very bad press. And his political and polling numbers are going down. And so all of a sudden he decides to change his tune. And we just don't think that's fair to the American people. We don't think it's good policy. And quite frankly, we think it's part of an attack on working class Americans and certainly working class Mississippians, in which the president is trying to convince these individuals that they are going to have to choose between getting a jab in their arm and being able to provide for their families. And we just think that's a false choice.
Well, there's also a lot of fear being stoked in this, that if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to die. In reality, a lot of Americans already have natural immunity because they've had the virus, but that's not even factoring into the conversation, is it?
Well, that's exactly right. Here in our state of Mississippi, we have almost 1.5 million Mississippians that have taken at least the first dose of the vaccine, but we have 450,000 Mississippians that have tested positive for the coronavirus. We know that natural immunity is at a minimum, certainly very, very, very useful in avoiding bad outcomes from this particular virus. And so that is a fact. And you know, a year ago, Tony, they kept talking about the individuals that have tested positive, that probably somewhere between 3 and 5 times that many people have actually had the virus, and they just, in many instances, didn't know about it or didn't get tested. And so when you look at the combination of the naturally immune because they've had the virus and therefore have the antibodies, plus those that have taken the vaccine, it's some number very, very high. We think in our state, probably in the 75 to 80% range at least.
And this is an issue that is better dealt with at the local level, the state level. And quite frankly, I think it's best dealt with in the family. The family makes these health decisions with guidance by their doctors. But when you look at those things which are clearly within the realm of responsibility for the federal government, you mentioned Afghanistan, national security, that certainly is in the hands of the federal government. They're responsible for that. And that would include security on our border. But what we see happening on our southern border doesn't look like they're performing their duties quite well, does it?
Well, it is an absolute travesty the way in which the Biden administration has dealt with our southern border. Here is the number. Over 1.3 million illegal aliens have crossed the border during the Biden administration. That is a population that is greater than 10 states in the United States, and it's almost half of the population of the state of Mississippi has illegally crossed the border into the United States. And it's all simply because President Biden and his team made the decision, a conscious decision, to reverse the policies of the Trump administration, which had finally, for the first time in years, gotten illegal crossings at a level much less than what we're seeing today.
Now, you joined with about 25 other governors in requesting a meeting with President Biden on the border issue, but this is just one of many, many issues that you and your Republican colleagues have taken a stand on. Are you optimistic that some of these efforts that you and other Republican governors are going to take on from a legal perspective, that you're going to be successful in stopping some of this federal overreach?
Well, we are optimistic. Clearly, when you talk about the federal overreach as it relates to the vaccine mandates, I do not believe that the one person, the President of the United States, can take unilateral action to require vaccines. And what I've said repeatedly is, if the president can do this, what can he not do? What can he not require? If the President of the United States can make a healthcare decision for individual Americans, what can he not do? What does the Constitution not allow him to do? And so we think this is clearly an unconstitutional act, and one that ultimately the courts will reverse. It's not unlike the recent situation in which we believe that Biden passed an order as it related to renters that he knew was clearly unconstitutional, that he didn't have the authority to do. And literally within weeks, the Supreme Court threw that out. We think it'll be similar.
Well, we're thankful that the governors are fighting it. Governor, we got to go. Out of time. Thanks so much for joining us. Folks, stick